for joining us for an LADN workshop with Atlas Assistance Dogs.
Okay, so I get to introduce Jennifer Kohler. Jennifer is the founding board member and president of Atlas Assistance Dogs, a nonprofit organization dedicated to working with people with disabilities to train their dogs as service dogs. So she's been at Atlas for 8 years and has played a pivotal role developing programs that cater to individuals with disabilities and their canine companions, while also spearheading the creation of professional training offerings for service dog trainers. Molly Naher is also here with us from Atlas Assistance Dogs. She's the Director of Operations and Programs and works behind the scenes developing and managing Atlas's programs and working hands-on with Atlas clients to support them as they train their service dogs. So thank you so much for being with us today for our workshop. I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Well, really happy to be here. As I mentioned, I'm Jennifer, helping with people that may have different vision impairments others. So I'm a white woman with medium length brown hair, wearing blue glasses and a blue dress. And I use she, her pronouns. Really happy to be here today. And Molly, do you want to say anything about you real quick, and then we'll go into this?
Yep. So, yeah, really excited to be here. I'm Molly. I'm a white woman with long brown hair. I'm currently wearing a black t-shirt.
So, kind of jump right in. So first off, here's our planned outline. We're going to be talking a bit about service dogs, just what they are, the laws about them, and versus emotional support animals. We're going to go into a lot about what a service dog can do for someone with dysautonomia. We have a lot of different examples for you. General considerations about if a service dog is right for you, and then options of getting and training dogs, including what we do in our program, but other options that are out there. We're intending to leave a good about 15 minutes for Q&A, and we're okay if we need to stay a little longer if people want to. And I'm sure that people also take follow-up questions. So feel free to put questions in the chat, and we'll answer them at the end, or just come on and ask questions afterward. So first off, a little bit about Atlas. So as Sally mentioned, we're a nonprofit. We're in our 8th year. Our goal is to fundamentally expand access to assistance dogs. We support people with disabilities to train and certify their own dog using only positive ethical methods. We believe anyone who would benefit from a qualified assistance dog should be able to have one. Some things that make us unique: we work with people to train their own dog as a service dog. We work with any breed of dog who has the right temperament and has the ability to do the work that that individual needs. We work with people of all ages, and we support people in a variety of locations. So first off, what is a service dog? And here we have a picture of a golden doodle putting their paw on someone's knees that are sitting down on a deck. So a service dog under the American with Disabilities Act is a dog that's trained to perform at least one task that directly mitigates someone's disability. And under the ADA, a disability is defined as something the individual finds impacts their life significantly day to day. It's in the eye of the individual. It's not up to a medical provider or anybody else to say under the ADA when it comes to service dogs. And then the dog just needs to be well behaved in public settings. With that individual and their dog together have access to pretty much all public spaces that the general public would have. There are a few exceptions to this, such as religious institutions, or where it would change the fundamental nature of the business. So for example, a commercial kitchen. Zoos are allowed to not allow service dogs in certain areas where it could be a danger or a threat to the other animals. Chemical factories, things like that. But otherwise, anywhere you would normally have public access, you are allowed with your dog. The dogs can be any breed, any size. They can be trained by an organization, a specialized trainer, or the individual with a disability. And they can help people with a huge range of disabilities and medical conditions, we're excited to talk to you about that today, because this is one of those areas where people are just starting to realize how many things service dogs can do for people with dysautonomia and related conditions. And one other thing I also wanted to call out: they don't have to have a vest. They don't have to have an ID card. They don't have to have any proof of training or certificate. This is commonly misunderstood in the US. And then in terms of a service dog versus an emotional support animal, here we have a lovely chocolate lab peeking out over a baby gate up at us. An emotional support animal is not trained to perform any specific tasks. Their benefit or value is purely just their presence and comfort. The main reason you would classify your dog as an ESA is for housing purposes at this point. Airline laws have changed, so at this point, your only rights with an emotional support animal are housing. They allow you to have your emotional support animal with you in housing that doesn't otherwise allow animals, or it'll prevent you from having to pay an extra pet fee for somewhere that would charge that. They don't have to have any specific training. They do require that you have a letter from your doctor in order to get that accommodation. And then they do not have any public access rights. So they can't go in public like a service dog can. I did want to mention one other kind of middle ground, which is a skilled companion dog. This is a dog who is trained to mitigate a disability at home, but isn't used out in public. For some people, in some cases, their dog may already be helping them at home, but may not have the necessary skills or temperament to be out working in public. And this is a nice option for people to think about and not be discouraged if maybe their dog doesn't have the right temperament or nature to be out in public. That doesn't mean they can't help you. And so just kind of remembering that as a potential option too. So with that, Molly, why don't you talk to us about and show us a lot of examples about how a service dog can help people with dysautonomia?
Absolutely. So we have a graphic up here that goes over a variety of tasks, and we'll go over some video examples. We also have a picture of, this is my dog actually, this is Reed. He's a black Labradoodle. So one thing that I like to, is really cool with service dogs, it's not so much, like these are all the things that a dog can do for X condition, but it's so unique to the individual. So I'll go through kind of a variety of options of tasks that a dog could be trained for to help mitigate some of the symptoms of dysautonomia. Some things could, as I go through them, you might think, yeah, this could be really beneficial for me, or yep, maybe not at all. And that's what's really cool about service dogs. It's so individualized to the person. There's no cookie cutter experience. So some things that could just help with kind of daily tasks and just really saving up your energy, saving up your spoons, opening, closing doors, turning on and off lights. If you're in bed with a migraine, it can be the difference between having to get up and walk across the room to turn off the light versus having your dog go and turn off the light for you. Helping the person remove clothing if it's a bad pain day or bad fatigue. Retrieving items that could look like picking up the keys that you've just dropped. If you get really dizzy, bending over, picking up the leash, or going across the room and getting your phone, getting a bottle of water out of the fridge, getting medication, things like that. And we have mobility tasks, and that can look really different. And there's kind of a wide range of mobility assistance tasks, kind of ranging from light mobility to heavy mobility. And ultimately, when we talk about mobility assistance, it's really going to be things that are going to benefit and help with stability and balance, potentially prevent falls. And depending on what that looks like, you may need a dog that's going to be, bigger and heavier. It'd be okay if the dog doesn't meet as much height and weight requirements. So that might be dependent on size and weight of the dog. And then going and getting help. So the dog could be trained to go get a specific person if you fainted, or could even be trained to press an alert button or even call emergency services on a specialized phone. So now we can look at some video examples.
Before we go there, do you want to explain kind of retrieval and some of what can...
I did.
Oh,
didn't I?
I
I thought I did.
All right.
Yep.
You're right, you did. All right. So in this video, what are we seeing?
So here we have one of our trainers working with a golden retriever, just pushing some doors, and doors closed, including a washing machine. And here the dog is still in the learning phase, but pushing a wallet across a table. So this is just kind of a cool example of, the difference between having to completely bend forward to having to go get the thing that's across the table, potentially causing dizziness, versus just getting that little extra help, and the dog nudging it towards you. Here we have the same trainer. This is Jill, is her name. She's one of our great trainers and volunteers. Dog is helping remove her jacket. Now we're going to see the dog pulling open some doors and helping her up off of a chair. And pulling open another door. So in this video, we're going to see a chocolate Labrador who's going to be retrieving some items. The person is actually using a laser to target and show the dog what she wants to be retrieving. So he picked up a sock. And now he's going to go pick up a larger duffel bag. And now pointing towards the light switch. Go turn on the light. Little important note about the laser: if you happen to have a laser at home and happen to have a dog at home, I'd caution you to not start playing with the laser and your dog at home, because this is training that requires a lot of considerations. It's not something that is for every dog. Some dogs could develop some prey drive around it, and there's safety considerations around, lasers in the eyes. So if you do happen to have a laser pointer at home and a dog at home, don't just go playing around with the laser in your dog. So now we're going to see that mobility assistance. So we have a German Shepherd here who's wearing a mobility harness. And the handler is walking, and she's kind of lost some stability there. And so she pulls on the harness, which tells the dog to, and Jen, maybe you want to show that video again. Because when she loses some balance, she pulls on the harness, and that cues the dog to stop and brace, and so she can regain her balance. So we have a few more tasks that I want to talk about. And here we have a picture of a young woman sitting in a hospital bed with her chocolate lab service dog laying on top of her. So deep pressure therapy is a really common task that people with a really wide range of medical and psychiatric conditions find beneficial. It helps provide grounding, can help with blood flow, can just help with pain. So, and it can be done in all kinds of positions. Ultimately, the dog is providing pressure. So it can be the dog is laying on your legs, is laying across your body. You can be sitting, laying, but it can be very beneficial for a lot of folks. fainting response tasks or medical response tasks. This could look different, again, based on your needs, but the dog could be helping you kind of get alert after you fainted by, licking you, nudging your arms, or maybe they're diving under your legs to kind of provide some elevation in your legs, get that blood flow going to your heart. Or maybe they're providing some of that pressure therapy. Maybe they're going to retrieve some medication, going to get a person. Can be like a whole chain behavior that they're doing to help. Guiding tasks. So oftentimes we think of, guide dogs helping people who are blind or low vision, but this could also be really beneficial for people saying vertigo or migraines, or just during really bad brain fog days. The dog can be trained to guide to a chair or find an exit or find a person. So again, there are some considerations with height of the dog, size of the dog. This isn't a task every single dog could be able to do, but for the right dog and the right person, it can be beneficial. Medical alert. So we're learning more and more every day about all the things that dogs can alert to, and the things that dogs can pick up on. And so we do know that dogs can pick up on changes in heart rate and blood pressure. We don't know exactly what they're picking up on, if it's scent-based, and if it is scent-based, what that scent is. But we know anecdotally, and we have clients with POTS, that their dog alerts to changes in blood pressure. Typically what we do is their dog will kind of start naturally picking up on changes. They may start displaying some different behaviors, and that's kind of the signal to us that, okay, yeah, they're picking up on a change. And once we start realizing that the dog is indeed sensing heart rhythm changes, then, or sometimes that can also be, pain, migraines. I have a seizure alert dog. So we'll then shape that into a more reliable alert. And then tasks around temperature regulation. The dog can be trained to go get a cooling packet or blanket. Again, this kind of goes more towards retrieval tasks, but just kind of thinking big picture, all the things that a dog could do to help mitigate symptoms. So looking at some examples, here we have a medical response where her handler has fallen or fainted. The dog goes, checks on her, and is going to go retrieve that medication bottle across the room and bring it to her. A different type of medical response. This is me and my dog. Simulating getting dizzy. My dog checks on me, provides some stability so that I can put a little bit of light pressure on his shoulders and get myself to the ground safely. He's then going to provide some deep pressure on my legs once I'm done cuddling him. And when I'm ready to stand back up, I can put some pressure again and stand back up safely. And something important to note, just safety-wise, with the pressure that I'm putting on his back and kind of that bracing. He's a large dog, he's tall, he's had all the x-rays to make sure that he's safe, that it's safe for me to do that. And I'm only putting slight pressure on his back. So again, if you have a dog at home, please don't go and put all the pressure on your dog's back. It can be it can be dangerous to do that without knowing exactly where to put your positioning, put your hands, and making sure that we want to make sure your dog is safe. And then we wanted to add in a video related to psychiatric tasks, because even if we have a lot of people with physical and medical conditions, there's also a lot of psychiatric components and mental health components that goes along with it. So here we have a dog who's going to be alerting or interrupting hand-picking behavior. This is one of our clients demonstrating how her dog helps as her anxiety escalates and as she has, when she has a panic attack. So she might start with hand picking, and then she might be rocking on the ground, crying, and her dog goes and provides pressure on her legs and on her shoulder. And for this particular person, her panic attacks, when they get bad, she just kind of goes into a ball on the floor and can even start banging her head on the floor. So her dog is trained to dive under her and prevents her from banging her head on the floor. And so this is also a really great example of kind of the difference between an emotional support animal and a psychiatric service dog, where those are really trained tasks that the dog is responding to and doing. So now I just want to talk about a few things, related to some of the things to consider when deciding if a service dog is the right option for you, because it's a big decision. So, first, just taking the service dog aspect out of the picture, just thinking about a dog. Do you have the lifestyle that a dog fits into that lifestyle, housing wise? Is a dog going to, sorry, my brain stopped for a little moment there. Yeah, lifestyle wise, does a dog fit into the picture? Do you have the necessary tools in place to care for a dog daily? And then finances, a dog baseline does come with expenses. You have vet bills, food bills, just general toys, bedding. And then if we're talking about service dogs, there's added expenses there when it comes to the training, any additional gear. If we're talking about then additional mobility equipment, like mobility harnesses, like we saw in that one video, that comes with expenses. But then you can think about your support network. So maybe the idea of caring for a dog all by yourself is really daunting and overwhelming. But do you have the support network in place that can help with that? So maybe taking a dog out for walks daily is something that is really difficult to think about, and with your health is challenging. But you have people in your life that can help with walks, and that can help with grooming. You would also want to think about, are the people in the household okay with the idea of a service dog? Are they going to be respectful of any boundaries that you set in place when it comes to training? Because it's not just your average family pet dog. So you might want to put in different rules when it comes to the service dog. So you want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. You're going to want to think about the type of dog that's going to be the right fit for you if you're wanting to go down the service dog route. Obviously, I talked a lot about, things to consider with height and weight for a mobility dog, if that's something that you would need. However, some things to think about if you're wanting a larger dog. If you were to start off with training your own dog and getting a puppy or an adolescent, those dogs are going to maybe pull a little more. And if you're someone who's at risk of falling and injuring yourself, there's a greater risk with that. With a smaller dog, some of the things to think about there is that you might have to be looking down a lot more and bending over a lot more. So there could be more risk for dizziness. So there's, however, accommodations that you can make. We can use like elevated platforms for the dog can go up on. We can use long spoons with peanut butter for treats. So there's ways to manage all of this, but all of those things you might want to think about. You're going to want to think about kind of just the long term, what it takes to train a service dog. And Jen's going to be talking about the different options of, you know, whether training a service dog or getting a trained service dog already. But regardless, having a service dog, whether you train it yourself or whether you get a trained service dog, requires time and consistency. So kind of thinking through, do you have the time to put in training a little every day, and kind of what does that look like for you? Something that a lot of people don't necessarily think about is how visible you become with a service dog, especially if you're someone with an invisible disability. When you have a service dog, you become very visible. People might ask you questions, people might look at you more, and occasionally you might even run into challenges trying to go into a public space, and that can be really daunting. You have to learn to advocate for yourself and advocate for your dog. So if you're, you know, if you have social anxiety already, that's definitely something to think about. I will say, however, that for some people, that extra layer of visibility is really beneficial. You know, we found that for some people, it's kind of gives the outside world almost like an explanation of what's going on. You know, the difference between, hey, I have to sit down in the middle of the grocery store because I'm feeling dizzy. Well, it makes, you know, more sense to the others around if I'm doing it with a service dog next to me versus doing it without a service dog. So for some people, it's really beneficial. For others, it can create some more anxiety. You'll want to think about just kind of day to day what your general life looks like. Do you go to school? Do you go to work? What will that look like with a service dog? And integrating into those spaces with a service dog. And, you know, will you want to talk to, eventually, if you go to work with your service dog, you'll want to be talking with your employer about that. And same with school. There's a lot of steps to all of that. And then something that we always really want people to be mindful about is how a service dog isn't the cure-all. It isn't the ultimate fix. Service dogs are incredible. They're amazing. They do so much for us, but they are living sentient beings. They have good days. They have bad days. They need breaks. They get to have fun. So they're an additional tool. They're an additional piece of your medical plan, but they should be considered an addition, a backup, not everything. You shouldn't be putting all of your eggs in the service dog basket. And image-wise, we have a picture here of, again, that's me and my service dog when we were in college, actually. So we're walking through a big hall.
Smalley. So
And,
now
no, sorry, go for it.
So I'm going to talk about some of the options that you have, the traditional typical options you have for getting a service dog or for training your dog. So first off, it's receiving an already trained dog. This is typically working with a nonprofit organization who provides dogs that have some level of training. Some of the benefits, they're already trained. Now, what level is going to vary significantly by organization. They may be free if you qualify, depending on most nonprofits that provide service dogs serve a very specific population in a very specific area. They may be internationally recognized, which can make traveling a lot easier. Drawbacks, though, there's a potential for long wait lists. And in many of these organizations, those wait lists are revolving positions. You aren't just in a static line. You may get prioritized or deprioritized depending on who else applies. You have to meet very specific criteria. Again, disability, age, military status, location. There is still a potential for high costs. In some of these organizations, you are still paying 10, 20,000 or more for that dog. The quality of the ongoing training support really can vary. Some organizations do a phenomenal job of continued ongoing training, ongoing support, making sure as your condition changes or as your need change, that you have the support to help retrain the dog. Others really don't do as great a job with that ongoing support. And typically you don't own your own dog. In a lot of cases for these nonprofits, they maintain ownership to protect the dog, that in case you aren't able to care for them or there's neglect or abuse, they're able to take the dog back. However, that also means they have a lot of influence and control over you. And I have seen organizations use that to kind of coerce people into doing fundraising or marketing, to kind of manipulate them so they maintain control of their dog, maintain access to their dog. Because when you're dependent on a service dog, working with a service dog, the last thing you want to do is have any risk whatsoever of losing them. Private training service. In this case, you're working typically with a for-profit, so a private trainer, or a company that provides partially trained dogs. This also could be working with a breeder who provides started dogs. Some of the benefits, the dog has a starting level of training. This can be really great if maybe you're able to work with an adolescent, but not able to work with a baby puppy. This gives some more people the options of sort of a gateway into owner training. You may be able to get additional ongoing training support, typically at a cost, and they may have fewer criteria to qualify, because a lot of the qualification there is going to be their availability or financial availability. There's still a potential for a long wait list. There's often a high cost for the dog in training. I've seen organizations charge from $10,000 to $60,000 for the dog and some level of training. There's also no guarantee the dog will be a good match. Depending on the company and how you approach this, you may be paying for the dog up front and then paying for training with the hope that it will work out. Or you may be working with an organization that you aren't paying anything or you aren't committed to the dog until they know they're a good fit. There's typically no ongoing support unless you pay for it. And then owner training, and this is the model we fall under. You already have a dog or you adopt or purchase a dog to train your owner with support. So some of the benefits, you get to choose your own dog. This can be great for people that really don't necessarily want the traditional breeds used in service dog work. Maybe you want a smaller dog than a Labrador or a Golden Retriever. Maybe you want a hypoallergenic dog. Maybe you already have a dog who's partially meeting your needs. You build a bond with your dog from the start. You're really developing your own language between the two of you. And for waxing and waning conditions like dysautonomia, where your needs change hour to hour, day to day, and where some of the symptoms can really drastically change over years, being able to have the skills to retrain your dog and add new capabilities for them on your own is really powerful. You really learn to become a trainer yourself. This is often the least expensive option. Drawbacks are there's no guarantee the dog is going to be a good service dog candidate. You're really doing your best to pick a good starting point and then see how it goes. So you do run the risk of either ending up with, if the dog you chose isn't going to work out for public access, of either narrowing how you want to use them, rehoming them, or adding on another dog and trying again. It's a big learning curve for those who've never trained a dog before. And it can still be really hard to find qualified trainers or consistent service dog training resources. This is one of those areas where there's a lot of great trainers out there, but there are also people out there that are taking advantage of people with disabilities. We see this a lot in the autism community, of a lot of people preying on parents of autistic children. And the parent will spend $20,000 for a trained dog who ends up being a puppy who then attacks their child. And so just beware, do your research, really look into the trainers you're working with. So our program, our handler team certification, we work with people with a wide range of disabilities. We'll pretty much work with anybody other than pure guide dogs. Here we have a picture of a golden retriever in one of our Atlas vests looking out over a windowsill. Our training program is a 9-month minimum program. We start with you once your dog is at least 14 months of age, has a baseline, a foundation of obedience, such as what you can get with the Canine Good Citizen test. We want them just to have baseline good temperament, be comfortable around other dogs, other people, comfortable being handled, and have just that baseline of obedience. If your dog can pass that and you're committed to using only positive training methods and committed to working with us through that 9-month period, and we have support where you are, then we can take you on as a client. There we work with you to teach you the different disability mitigating tasks you need, how to navigate in all of your specific environments and really customize that to you. And help you learn real life skills to self-advocate for you and your dog, help you understand how do you integrate into school or work or the places you want to go. We are really focusing on building community support, both virtually and locally in the areas we serve. So there are other clients, other trainers there to help you, other volunteers. Once you've completed that training program, and some people may need more than 9 months, that's okay. You have continued ongoing support over the years as you're working with you and your dog. We're doing annual recertifications so that we can make sure your dog is healthy, so we can help you fine tune your training as you go. In this program, we charge $900 for 9 months of training. And for some people, that may be high. That's very low in the service dog industry. But we also offer additional scholarships if that's too high for some people. And so that's our primary certification model. We also have for people whose dog isn't quite ready yet, or they aren't where we can serve, we have what we call our Team Set in Motion program. This is an online program that's only $59.90 for 3 months. It's a starter program. It's a great place to get foundations to build engagement and confidence with your dog. It really gives you great skills from puppy up through adulthood and maturing your dog that are beneficial for any pet dog, a future emotional support animal, future therapy dog, or future service dog. There's lots of trick training and pattern games. We really try to make this fun. You're turning in video assignments along the way, getting feedback from the community. There's optional Zoom office hours where both these clients and our full service dog clients are interacting together. So really trying to build a community around this. This is not a service dog course, and you're not guaranteed to go from this course straight to our client certification program. But it is a great starting point and a really great way to build those skills, especially if there's not a private trainer or a group class in your area that works for you and you want to do this from your home. I wanted to call out, we do have a couple of Atlas certified trainers in your area. As part of our nonprofit, we, in addition to working with our clients and training their dogs, we also want to put more qualified and ethical service dog trainers out there. And so we have an academy for professional trainers to go through. And in that they learn how to work with people with disabilities and dogs and do all the different disability mitigating tasks, and commit to using only positive methods with you and your dog. So I just wanted to call out from our website. There are a couple of folks in your area. And Liv on top is actually one of our volunteer team facilitators who work with our clients as well. So kind of next steps from here, we're going to go into Q&A, but if you want to learn more, and I know that there was already some information on the initial advertisement for this talk, but you could email us at info@atlasdog.org or go to our website. It'd be great if you follow us on social media. There's a newsletter sign up link on our website where we put out a lot of informational stuff about what service dogs can do. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And we can go into questions.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation. It's really very informative and wonderful to learn about some of the options that we have for training service dogs. All right, so to get into a couple of the questions, feel free if you have a question to put it in the chat, or if you'd like to come on screen and ask over the mic, you're welcome to as well. So some of the questions that we've gotten so far, someone is curious, they say, for some of us who are on dozens of meds, how during a fainting episode does the dog know which medicine to fetch? Since you likely can't use a laser in that situation.
That's a great question. And in a lot of those, you are teaching the dog to go to specific certain patterns. So if there's medication that you know is specific that you're going to need for whatever variety of reason, be it an allergic reaction or fainting or whatever, typically most of our clients have a specific pouch that medication is in, or it's in a specific colored bottle that the dog can recognize. Dogs are partially colorblind, but they can see some color. So you're training a pattern that they can repeat. We're not expecting them to go and read the label on your prescription bottles that all look the same. So you're building that pattern. So that's a great question.
Okay, that makes plenty of sense. All right, another question. Someone was curious how much a typical service dog costs. It sounds like they're asking about service dogs who have already been trained. Do you know how much?
It really drastically varies. So our organization, we charge $900 for that 9 months. It's common if you're working with a private trainer to pay about $200 an hour for service dog training. And you maybe, if you think about starting with a puppy, it's typically your dog is at least 2 by the time they're really ready, if not older, to be out fully mature and working for you, getting benefit along the way. But so you could easily be looking at $10,000-$20,000 if you're having them board the dog more. I've seen some breeders that also specialize in service dog training that are selling their dogs for $40,000 or $50,000 with a significant foundation of training. It really is all over the place, and you're going to be looking at how much is the cost of the dog, how much is the, what level of training do they get to. And while it sounds like it is an awful lot of money and not possible for most of us, it is also somebody putting hours a day of time into training and caring for a dog. And so there's a reason for the cost, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's accessible. And so it's just do your research if that's something you're looking for. Make sure to talk to other people who've worked with those trainers, or if it's the breeder, talk to other people who've worked with that breeder, look at reviews. There are a lot of scams, unfortunately.
Sad to hear, but very good advice. It definitely sounds like it can be a very long process, but it requires skilled trainers, I imagine. I did want to mention too, speaking of costs, LADN is currently, we have our applications open for our grant program, which so we'll be providing 10 grants of $1,000 to dysautonomia patients to help with dysautonomia related healthcare expenses. And so service dog training would be an eligible expense. So if you're interested in applying to that, you can go to our website, which has all the information there. We'll also be doing in just about a week a workshop on how to apply to the grant program. So someone has a question about the best age to start training a dog.
It's gonna really vary. I don't know if you want to answer this one, Molly, or I can. There's plus and minuses. When you start with a puppy, you know that you're starting with, and especially if you're working with a breeder or somebody that specializes in service dogs and you have a trainer helping you select the dog, you're really looking at avoiding red flags. You're essentially saying, can I get the best genetics possible? Can I get the best health possible? And the kind of, I don't see red flags of they're scared, they're not responsive, they're extremely hyper energetic. You're kind of looking at, I'm avoiding red flags and giving myself the best possible foundation. However, there's still all the rest of life they're going to experience with you, and all of that effort that is going to go into doing that proper socialization and training that may be very, very challenging. And thinking about having to do that day in and day out, regardless of your current condition and how you're feeling. Not to mention the bending over and the, cleaning up messes and potty training a puppy and how challenging that can be. So while you are in control of their experiences largely, that also means you're in control of their experiences. And that's a lot of work to build that foundation up. And you don't know how they're going to develop. If you start with say a adolescent, like a 1-year-old dog, you have a lot more likelihood of knowing what is their temperament going to be like. You can really assess them then and see, you know, a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old. Then if they're at least 2, they're also more physically mature. You could start doing load bearing work with them. But you don't necessarily know their background. So when you're starting with a rescue, for example, you're kind of looking at, we don't know all of their background. We don't know what their confidence is in certain situations. We don't know what might be scary for them or triggering for them. But they're often a lot easier to start with than a puppy, just in terms of physical demands for you. And so it can really vary. There's plus and minuses of both routes. That's where, if you know, an option that's kind of a hybrid, I'm seeing some more trainers offer this, or breeders offer this, of starting with, you purchase a puppy and then someone raises it to a certain point, or the breeder keeps it to a certain point. A lot of people are capable of starting maybe with a 6-month-old or an 8-month-old dog or a year-old dog that couldn't start with a puppy. Some rescues have great foster to adopt options. Other rescues absolutely are not open to you adopting a dog who will be a potential service dog. So kind of knowing that too as you work with different rescues. I don't know if there's anything you want to add there, Molly.
No, I think you covered that well. And I know that sometimes when people ask that question, they're asking it more as oh, I have a 4-year-old dog. Is it too late to train? So I don't know if that's kind of where the question was coming from. And I would say the answer to that is no, it's not necessarily too late. We have clients who start training their service dog when they're older. It's really dependent on the dog. We look at their temperament. And again, sometimes they get their dogs older when they, you know, as rescues. So I think there's no one right answer and one right way. There's definitely, at least at Atlas, we won't take on clients and their dogs once the dog is over 8 years old, just because at a certain point service dogs do retire. And we want to make sure that you're not spending all your time and energy training a dog and then a year later are retiring them. So yeah.
That's very helpful to know. Thank you. We have another question here about any frame of reference for how much weight is needed for the deep pressure therapy that you guys talked about.
And it's going to depend on the kind of, both that and mobility is going to depend on what you want for some people. So like my dog is a psychiatric service dog. One of his tasks is just putting his, and he's a lab, but he will put his head on my feet. That is very, very grounding. That doesn't require a lot of weight. Although he's got a big bulky lab head. Similarly, it could be putting pressure across legs or lap. You can have a dog fully on your chest. So it kind of depends. We have clients who have smaller dogs that are perfectly capable of doing deep pressure therapy, and their whole body may be laying on your lap. So I would say, you know, probably a dog who's at least 30 pounds, going up from there if you really want to feel a lot. But for some people, a tiny bit of tactile contact actually has a significant benefit. And so it isn't necessarily that they're smothering you, and that may actually not work for a lot of people. It's just that contact, that impact on the nervous system. It can be fairly small. For the mobility work, like Molly was talking about, typically, and there's a lot of different considerations. If you're going to be putting any load bearing work on a dog, like bracing on them, using a heavier harness, you typically want a dog who's at least 50 or 60 pounds, typically at least 23 inches high, some proportion of weight to yourself. If you're just doing like kind of light proprioception, where it's like, where am I in space? And you're not putting weight on the dog, they're just helping you kind of orient. That could be a smaller dog. Maybe that's a 40-pound dog. It's not going to be a 20-pound dog though.
I am going to put a link in the chat to a website called Mobility Dog Resources, which Jen and I were part of, along with some other dog trainers and breeders, because there are no real guidelines in the industry when it comes to this. And so we were part of this group to try and put some guidelines around safety and requirements when it comes to safety guidelines around, I'm sorry, end of the day, my brain is a little slow, around safety guidelines for weight work.
That's very helpful. Thank you. All right, so we have another question. What are some of the most common reasons a dog doesn't make a good fit for a service dog?
Yeah, and I see a number of questions of that vein. So most common are either fear, so fear and lack of confidence in public settings, reaction to other dogs, other people. With a service dog, we want to make sure they are rock solid when the unknown strange, and it's almost worse with adults than kids, the random strange adult, grown-ass adult comes running up, making stupid noises and jumps on your dog and says, I know I shouldn't, but they do it anyway. And we want to make sure your dog isn't going to react out of fear, isn't going to bite, isn't going to be terrified. All dogs are capable of biting. That is part of their nature. We want to be picking a dog who is as confident and comfortable as possible in those settings. Dogs that we've seen, elevators can be pretty scary for dogs. Riding in a car, some dogs don't like. So that's one of the more common noises. The other would be, on the flip side, a dog who is overly excited and overly social and really can't handle themselves in public settings. Or if they see another dog, they either lose their mind with excitement or will bark and lunge or react to them. And then finally, there's some dogs who just, depending on their temperament, they just like herding dogs, for example. Super smart dogs, very sensitive dogs. Not necessarily they like to work, but they're not necessarily wanting to do medical alert tasks. Although I've known plenty of great herding dogs who are also working dogs. So some of it can really depend on their personality and what task you need them to do. Medical alert dogs are on a lot of the time. They need to be paying attention to you and your symptoms a lot of the time. So you're not going to be picking the dog who's sort of aloof and off on their own. And so that's kind of like with good temperament. We do have up on our website and the resources side, we do have a list of recommended questions to ask breeders. If you go look at our website, you will also see our requirements to enter our program that talk about temperament and behavior that you're looking for in your dog as a good candidate for a service dog. And so you can also find so some of that information there. But if you're starting with a puppy, you're looking for a middle of the road dog, not the super excited, not the super reserved. But it's so individual too. It's going to really depend on how much energy do you have in your lifestyle. What do you want to do with your lifestyle? I see some of you mentioning, that you have yards. It's a great way to exercise. A treadmill can be a great way. I've known people though that, if you want to take your dog to a dog park, but then you need to take your medication early in the morning, then you can't drive, that makes it trickier, right? So just kind of judging.
That also comes to that support system, right? Do you have people in your life that can help with that? You're training a service dog, having a dog, it takes a community. It takes a whole lot of people to help.
And kind of along that of seeing if an already existing dog is appropriate, sometimes just looking at how do they respond to things. If you want a dog to do alerts, are they persistent? Do they like to nudge at you? Do they paw or do they nose? Or do they just sort of like, are they really passive? Again, how likely are they to be paying attention to you versus just off in their own world? So yes, there are ways to kind of evaluate, do they have that temperament? Do they have that kind of propensity, or are there red flags that say this probably isn't the best fit for them?
Oh, that's very helpful. We had another question asking about how to tell if someone has if a dog has a good temperament. So those are some helpful tips. We also had someone who was wondering if there's any particular breeds that you recommend for someone with POTS or dysautonomia for training a dog.
So Molly brought up a lot of considerations on size. And this is really one of those tricky ones, since for most people with dysautonomia, falling is a big risk. And having an active dog who could pull you over, and especially depending on what other conditions you have going on. We work with a lot of people with EDS, where falling can be a really great risk. The bigger dog gives you the possibility of that support and stability, but as they're maturing and you're raising them, you're having to manage a lot more to make sure you're safe. Bigger dogs eat more food, so that costs more, and they don't usually live as long as smaller dogs. But smaller dogs, depending on what you want them to retrieve, can't retrieve super heavy things, don't do as well for pressure therapy, but they sure fit a lot more easily in an airplane, right? So it's so individual.
Those are definitely sounds like lots of different things to balance out making that choice. Someone had a question about your 9-month training program. They were wondering if it's in person and how often the sessions occur.
Yeah, so it's in person. You're meeting with your team facilitator, so that's our volunteer trainer, with your team facilitator twice a month for that 9-month period, and for in-person sessions. And typically the lessons are in a public place, because by the time you're joining our program, your dog's ready to work in public environments. So it's not, occasionally we'll do lessons in the home, but frequently it's, we're working in, maybe it's a grocery store, restaurant, depending on, your, individual goals. It might be we're working on public transportation, airport outings. It's really individualized based on the person, based on the goals, based on the dog.
That's helpful. Thank you. So someone here asked if there's a resource on what exactly to look for from a health screening standpoint, or a specific type of vet to go to who knows what to screen for. I know you put in the mobility dog resources. I'm not sure if that also talks about health screening or if you have any.
It does a little bit, and there's definitely mixed opinions on that. If you're looking for really getting great screening for a mobility dog, then you're probably wanting to go to an orthopedic specialist, or having x-rays that then go in for PEN-HIP or OFA, making sure that somebody's really looking at that. Veterinarians don't really know a lot about training, and they don't know a whole lot about behavior, and they don't really know a lot about what a service dog is going to do. We give our clients a form to bring to the vet to just look for general health. And do they see any and require x-rays if the dog will be doing load-bearing work? And just sort of see, are there any conditions that could impact the working life of the dog? Even a dog not doing mobility work is a dog who's going to be walking on a hard pavement, going out and about with you. A lot more is going to be expected of them than a typical pet. So making sure that they're as healthy as possible. Some health conditions, depending on your situation, if the dog isn't, say, a medical alert dog, you could handle your dog having some health conditions that you may need to help care for them a little more. Other people, if you're really relying on that dog, even though, as Molly said, we want to always kind of think of them as a backup. It's important. Molly's dog is a seizure alert dog, as she mentioned. So if he had health problems that took him out a fair amount, that wouldn't work for her. So
I just wanted to follow up too on the question about your program, if it was in person. So it sounds like you guys have different trainers that are in different areas. Is that right? And so the 2 trainers you mentioned in our areas, do they do your 9-month program?
one of them does.
One of them does.
Yeah, so some of the people are people that just are professional trainers who offer their own businesses and do training for whatever their fees are. The second trainer there, Roger, is that they both are that. But in addition, some of them have also decided to volunteer as our volunteer team facilitators. And so if you look at our website at where we serve, we have people all across the country in different locations, but we can serve wherever we have those volunteers. And we are actively trying to build up more support in the LA area.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna put your website in the chat there to make sure everyone has that. And then another question, if you do need a larger dog and may be traveling or flying as part of your lifestyle or job, is there any max size that's too large for a service dog for like being on a plane or in other public areas?
They
So-
need to, oh, go ahead, Molly.
Oh, I was just gonna say, they need to fit within your foot space. So I don't believe that there's that the airlines have like a specific size requirements, but as long as the dog can fit within your foot space, which is definitely harder for larger dogs, we can teach them to tuck. I have a 70-pound tall dog. He tucks into that small space. It's not comfortable for either of us, but it's possible.
And otherwise, if you have, I've known people that travel with Great Danes, they buy 2 seats. And doing things like Economy Plus can really, really help.
And it's always helpful to that if the person next to you is nice enough, they're usually okay with the dog sliding over a little bit. But you can't guarantee that.
Sure. Makes sense. All right, another question here. Are there any rescue or other dog organizations or people who raise or breed dogs that you would recommend? No, that's probably.
Yeah, it's gonna be, it depends. It's gonna depend so much on the area.
Yeah, I would say email us or call with kind of your specifics. We definitely have some resources, but yeah, email or call with some specifics, and we can maybe point you to some more specific resources.
Okay, great, thank you. And I had a question myself. You guys mentioned that some of the like prerequisites for a dog joining your program included like passing a canine, I don't even remember what it was called.
Canine Good
And good
Citizen.
citizen.
Yeah, so is that, could you explain what that is?
Yeah, go for it, Molly, and I'll put a link in.
Yeah, so Canine Good Citizen, it's kind of your general basic good manners pet dog test. Any pet dog can take it across the US. And it's 10, I believe, yeah, 10 skills. A lot of trainers across the country can provide that test. There are classes all over the country that will help you train for it. But it's kind of your canine good citizen.
It's
your
very
good
basic.
test.
It's like, can they sit for a greeting? Can they walk past other dogs? Can they ignore
Go up to a person.
distractions? Kind of, can they be handled by a stranger? So it's sort of just basic manners. That's a nice starting point for any dog that's going to be doing public work. And there's kind of knowledge, but there are tons of resources to start a dog. Lots of group training options that are more affordable to start a dog. There's not a lot of options to then do skills training and public access training. So that's where we really try to come in and focus.
Well, it sounds like you guys are doing really awesome work. I'm so grateful to have had you come talk to us about training for dysautonomia. So thank you so much for your time. And do you have any last things that you wanted to share with the group or any resources for connecting with you all?
I think maybe just be open-minded or creative about what dog could do for you. That there's so many different interplays of symptoms. And sometimes we have people come in with a notion of, oh, I want my dog to do this, this, and this. And you could revisit it. Well, actually, I want my dog to help with the symptom. There might be other ways that are easier to do that or easier for the dog. But it's amazing what we keep learning more and more all the time of what dogs can do. And so just kind of be open to where that might fit, and also be open to if this isn't the right fit for you, that's really okay. Be honest with yourself. This may not be the right fit for you right now or your dog. And that's okay, and that's important to know.
That's great. All right, well, thank you so much. This was really wonderful, and we so appreciate your time and everything you're doing for community of people with disabilities. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much
Thank
for
you
having
all.
us.
And Sally, if people are okay with sharing their information, we'll happily can send some follow-up information, or we can send you information that you can share. Leave that up to you.
Great, so that sounds good. Yeah, we would love to receive any info, and I'm happy to pass it along. Sounds like a plan. All right, well, thank you all very much. Hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Shoot.
Bye.
Bye.